Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. One of the most in-demand blues rock guitarists in the world is a mysterious character. Goes by the name of G.E.SMITH. Millions of TV viewers known his face and the shock of unruly blonde ponytail that was always falling across it from his tenure stint of fronting the Saturday Night Live band. G.E. always reminded me of Mark Farner a little bit. Smith was hired to play lead guitar for Hall and Oates. He stayed for 6 years from 1979 through 85, constantly touring and recording with them, racking up hit after hit. Smith toured for almost 4 years with the legendary Bob Dylan. Smith was also honored to be the musical director for special events such as the 1988 Emmy Awards, the 1993 Rhythm and Blues Foundation Awards, and the Bob Dylan 30th anniversary concert at Madison Square Garden. The latter event was another of those fantasy situations that GE keeps getting involved in. The rehearsals for that Dylan concert, you wouldn't believe. I was rehearsing with George Harrison in the morning, Eric Clapton in the afternoon, and Lou Reed at night. One afternoon, rehearsing the finale, I had Harrison, Tom Petty, Clapton, Neil Young, Dylan, and Roger McGuinn all lined up. Wow. That's all I can say is wow, man. GE also joined, of course, Roger Waters for the 2010 Wall Live tour, that the world tour 3 times, and toured with him for 7 years. In 2015, GE returned to SNL, where he received an Emmy Award as band leader for the 40th SNL anniversary special. 2015, GE and his wife, Taylor Barton, who also sings beautifully, started an exciting project called Portraits, which hosts a rotating roster of acclaimed musicians and artists from all realms for a deeper look at what drives them creatively. Please welcome legendary guitarist, and I can say that, I believe that, songwriter, band leader, G.E.SMITH, Interviewing the Legends. What do you say, man?
Well, hello, man. What can I say after that? I think we're done. Thank you.
We're done, man.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of stuff.
I've been really, really lucky. I'm just an old bar band guitar player from Pennsylvania.
Right.
Grew up playing in the joint since I was 11. And the good thing about that, about coming up through the bars, is you learn lots of songs, because you got to kind of be a human jukebox. You got to play the hits, whatever they were at the time. And I started doing that in 63, like just pre-Beatles. So I was still doing the kind of like, late 50s, early 60s stuff, the Buddy Holly stuff. And in Pennsylvania, of course, we did a lot of polkas and country stuff, George Jones. And so that was a great education for me. I was really lucky I got to do that. And any success I had later was a combination of me knowing just lots and lots of songs and just pure luck. You'll be somewhere, you'll meet somebody.
Right.
And that leads to something,
Well, you were quoted saying, I haven't slept since the 60s, and you are correct.
Really lucky. Yeah. There's lots of good guitar players out there,
Oh, yeah.
So you got to happen to meet somebody somewhere, and then that turns into something.
We got a couple of things in common. Okay. First of all, is your birthday January 27th?
It is.
So is mine.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't meet a lot. Now, you know who else was born on January 27th?
Nick Mason,
Mozart,
you're right.
and Elmore James.
Elmore James, one of my favorites.
The great blues player. That's the one that makes me happy.
Me too.
Yeah, to be connected in any way with Elmore, I'll take it.
Did you ever hear the song by Eric Burdon, No More Elmore?
Yeah.
No More Elmore James. That was a good tune. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been a big Eric Burdon fan.
Sure.
The other thing we have in popular is your dad was Lebanese. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Okay.
My best friend was Lebanese. We were friends with, my dad had a business in DC, and we had a Lebanese restaurant next to us. So we were great friends with those guys. But my dad's family is from Syria.
Really?
So, yeah.
My people, when I was a little kid, the old ones would say Syria, Lebanese. It's the same thing because they were from up in the mountains,
Right.
on the border of what is now Lebanon and Syria.
Mm-hmm.
So they said it was the same thing. Half of them would say they were Syrian, half of them would say they were Lebanese.
Well, the food is similar, you
The
know.
food is similar and
Yeah.
very great, as you know.
Did you did you learn anything of words, Syrian words, Arabic words, or
Absolutely. When I was a little kid,
right?
I grew up with my grandmother in the house,
Right.
and her mother, what we call my Siti, Siti's grandmother in Arabic, Siti only spoke Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
So when I would go to her house, she could only speak to me in Arabic, and she would be cooking, always cooking, and she would tell me things, and I knew what she was saying at the time. But back then, like you hear from a lot of people, the older people would say, no, English, speak English,
Yeah.
because they wanted us to be assimilated, just regular American kids. I was born in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
It's not like I'm from over there.
Right.
So I'm just, a townie, but it was great being around that. And the food to me is
The best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like kibde, sambusak, sambusak.
Yeah, man.
Ka'ak, the little circle with sesame seeds.
Oh, you're killing me.
Oh man, I grew up with that too. My grandmother, she was from, they settled in Brooklyn, in Bensonhurst, and she only spoke Arabic. But
yeah,
like you, I learned a lot of the words. Like Atina Flus. I know Shukran, Afwan.
Yeah.
I know all the bad words, of course.
I know mostly food words.
Food words, yeah.
Food words.
Yeah.
You ever go out to Dearborn, Michigan, man?
I have not.
A huge Lebanese Syrian community.
Oh wow!
And every block you can get so much good food and see the real people. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Jamie Farr always comes to mind when I think Lebanon, and Casey Kasem and
Casey Kasem. When I was on Saturday Night Live, he wrote to me and said they had a Lebanese American organization, so of course I joined, and I never really got that involved with it, but I was nice. It made me feel good that he asked, that he knew.
Sure. And of course the legend Danny Thomas,
Really? He was Lebanese?
Oh, 100%, man.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, Danny Thomas.
Danny Thomas, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said David Thomas, like from Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Oh, no. David, you mean David Clayton Thomas?
David Clayton Thomas. No, of course. Oh, Danny Thomas. Yeah,
Danny Thomas.
Uncle Tenuse.
Uncle Tenuse. Yeah. That was a great show.
Sure was.
There was a time where I would see you constantly. You were everywhere, man.
And for a minute there, yeah.
Yeah. And you actually started at a very young age. I'm very familiar with the Poconos. I used to take my wife there.
Okay.
We used to get the heart-shaped
tubs, heart-shaped bed. Yeah.
Yeah. The champagne glass hot tub. That was cool.
Yeah.
But you started there like when you were young, right? Playing music.
Yeah. I started I got a guitar when I was 4. I would say I really started playing when I was 7. And by the time I was 11, I was getting offers to play in bands with older people because there just weren't that many musicians around, especially electric guitar players, and they wanted that sound. Not that I was any good, but they needed that sound. And then when I was about 15, I started getting work at those resorts. Like Mount Airy Lodge was this one place. I played there with Bob Newman and the Starlight Orchestra. Wow. Because by then it's 67, and now they need like that rock thing,
Right.
So I would just pretty much sit there while they were doing the songs because I didn't really know how to keep up that much. And when it time, he would point to me and I'd, make some noise, and it was fun.
That's
and again, good learning experience. I learned lots of songs, the standards, the old stuff.
Do you still have that guitar, the first guitar you had? You ever?
I don't have the very first guitar I ever had. I wish I did. That was just a cheap old acoustic that was hanging in the basement.
Okay.
But I do have a Fender Telecaster that my mom and me went shopping in January of '63. It was my 11th birthday. and I had been offered this gig, so I could make a little money. And we went looking for a decent electric guitar. And we wound up very luckily getting this Fender Telecaster that I still have and still play all the time. And I've played that with everybody.
I'm a Telecaster guy too. Actually, I sold mine. I paid $300 for that thing, and sold it for $4,000. But I had a lot of autographs on there. I had Johnny Winter, Alvin Lee, Eric Burden, John, all kinds of autographs and stuff. So they grabbed it.
Right.
But I miss that guitar because I'm a big Fender guy as well. And as a matter of fact, I'm wearing a Fender shirt, man.
I see that.
In honor of you.
Very cool.
Yeah, man. There's been a lot of great Fender players. One of my favorites was, I'm from DC originally, but we moved down here about 20 years ago. Roy Buchanan.
Oh, Roy. Absolutely. We play, I'm in a little band with some buddies of mine called the Masters of the Telecaster.
Yep.
And we play a lot of Roy's stuff.
I saw him play with, I think it was Alice Cooper. He was backing him up.
Really?
He broke a string and he just kept rocking,
just kept going.
Like nothing ever happened,
Yeah.
The other guy that was big in DC was Danny Gatton.
Gatton was amazing.
Yep.
Amazing. I was walking down the street one time. I had played a gig in Georgetown, and I'm walking up the street, and I hear this guitar. This is before I was aware of Danny Gatton. I hear this guitar player. I'm like, oh my God. And I walk in this little joint. There's maybe 30 people there in the audience, and Danny's just blazing away. And I just stood there and listened for the rest of the night, completely humbling to hear him, the level that he could play at.
I interviewed the Hot Tuna guys, Yorma.
Sure.
And they were good friends with Danny. And
they're DC guys.
They're DC guys.
Yeah.
They're good guys. I like them a lot.
Really good.
You played with those guys too.
A lot. I've done a lot of work with them. And Yorma's, he had the Fur Peace Ranch teaching thing down in Southeast Ohio. And I went down there for at least 20 years every year and taught down there.
Huh. Well, your wife told me to bring up something. The True Fire. It's a new teaching video that you got coming out, I think, in the fall, correct? You want to talk about that?
Yes. That's why I was in St. Pete a couple of weeks ago. And I worked with this outfit, True Fire.
Right.
Who have been there for quite a while. They have a really nice facility there. A film, a film thing, a recording thing, and just really great people. They treated me wonderfully. And I went down there for a few days and had a really good time and filmed about 10 or 12 hours. And then they'll edit that down into something workable. And it's teaching, it's playing, that they would throw me a bass and drum groove that I had never heard.
Right.
And it would be like, okay, figure out what you would play. If you were in a recording session, what would you do for this? Give me a couple rhythm parts. Right. Give me a solo you would play over this. And I've always loved that seat of the pants thing. Like you mentioned that I played with Bob Dylan. Bob was completely like that. You never knew what he was going to play. And he could play a song, one of his known songs. He'd play it one way one night, and then 2 nights later, you'd be in a different city, and he'd play it in a very different way, a different feel, a different kind of attack, where before it was kind of a rocker, now it's a soft thing. If it was a soft thing, now it's a rocker.
Right.
So I've always really enjoyed that. There's only 12 notes. How wrong can we go?
That's true.
Yeah.
I love your audition for Bob Dylan. I saw that series of videos on YouTube that you did, artists about, spotlighting an artist, I guess. Yeah. You did very well in that interview too, by the way. I like that.
That was fun. The people that did it were again, very kind, nice people. And we had a good time. We did it over a couple of days, I think. And they've edited that up into a bunch of little segments, I
like that.
Don't get bored. Yeah, sure.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Dan Hartman.
Dan.
I started watching, of course, Dan when he was in Edgar Winter.
Right.
But the guy blossomed into he was very talented, man, you know, and just even recently I really studied his career and all the things he did. You kind of got started with Dan, right?
I really did. I was in a bar band in Connecticut called the Scratch Band.
Right.
And we were a very successful bar band in a regional thing. I have old calendars like from 74 and stuff. We did 245 shows a year and we never left Connecticut.
Hmm.
And when I say shows, I mean we're playing in bars, you know?
Yeah.
We're playing bars.
Wow.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then disco came along in 77 and they shut down most of the joints that we were playing in.
Right.
They put them into discos. And that was kind of a drag at first, but then it was good because it forced me then to finally get brave enough to move to New York City and do what I needed to do, you know?
You know, I didn't realize, you know, I knew Instant Replay, which was a big hit, and you did a lot of other hits. I didn't know he co-wrote Living in America with James Brown.
Living in America. Yeah, I mean, he wrote a lot of great songs. When I was with him and we were friends, he played me the demo of Free Ride that he had made when he was about 15.
Right.
And it sounds exactly like the record that was going to happen. You know, you know, and all that stuff. The guitar, he was doing it when he was 15. And
wow,
he could sing so good. You know, remember that song, I Can Dream About You?
Yep.
That's him. That was from a movie. No, Dan wrote a lot of great songs. But when he had that hit with Instant Replay, which was pure disco, he was going to do a tour of Europe to promote the record, a lip syncing tour.
Really?
Oh, he didn't need people that could play the song because he had played everything on the record. Dan was he'd play everything. He needed like weird looking people to be in the band that sort of would look like something on TV. So he saw me play with the Scratch Band in a bar.
Right.
And thought, that guy's weird. I'll get it. You know. So that was my first opportunity to really kind of start traveling outside the United States.
Well, the thing that you didn't say, though, you had a crew cut at the time.
I did. Not the most popular haircut in 1977. It made me stand out. Like I said, I was weird looking, you know.
But you did always remind me of Mark Farner with the ponytail.
That's cool. Nobody's ever said that, but you know what? You're right. I do kind of look like Mark.
Yeah, I know Mark. I've had Mark on the show.
Have you had him on?
Oh,
I bet he's a great guy.
Yeah, him and his wife, Lisa.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw him play at the Fillmore East a couple of times. You know, back in the late 60s. I'm getting closer, you know, to great songs, and he played great and sang great, and you know, he was all like in great shape. I don't think he wore a shirt, and he had these like silver things on his arms and weird guitar, a messenger with a silver neck. It was cool. Really good stuff.
Yeah. Hall and Oates, man, you were their guitar player for years. Matter of fact, I had John Oates on the show not that long ago because he went out on his own now, doing a lot of gigs by himself.
Yeah.
What was that like, man? Because you were involved with all the big hits.
Again, pure luck. They're Pennsylvania guys, you know, Reading and another town down near there. And they had met in Philadelphia downtown.
Right.
In the mid 70s, they had those two huge hits, Sarah Smile and A Rich Girl.
Yep.
Right. And they really did well with those, you know. Went out on the road, pushed it, sold millions of records. So they had a little money and they think, okay, now what are we going to do? Now remember, it's the mid 70s. Everybody was doing big conceptual, you know, rock operas almost.
Right.
So Todd Rundgren, another Pennsylvania guy.
Billy
from Arlington.
Yeah.
He he produced the record, and they did a record called Along the Red Ledge.
Mm-hmm.
It was a conceptual thing, and they spent a lot of money on getting a stage built,
Mm-hmm.
an elaborate kind of stage,
Right.
and the record just didn't connect with people, didn't sell a lot of copies, and it didn't really generate ticket sales for the concert.
Hmm.
So then by the time I met them, which was, I think, at the end of 77, beginning of 78, they were kind of like in a little slump. But they were in the studio recording a record. They needed somebody new to come in and play guitar.
Right.
So Eddie Zine had been the drummer earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew Eddie now from New York City. And he said, "Oh, I know a guy. Let me bring him by." So he brought me by the studio. I met them. We're Pennsylvania guys, like I say. We got on pretty good. And Daryl says, "Well, yeah, come to my apartment tomorrow, and we'll run over some stuff and see how it goes." So I go to his apartment, and I walk in, and we start talking about Pennsylvania and clothes and this and that. I never got the guitar out of the case. He just said, "Just come to the studio," And yeah, that's how I got the job with them. And then I did it for 6 years, and it went from when I first got hired and we first went out on the road, we recorded a record, went out on the road, I was getting $200 a week, $100 to play the guitar and $100 to drive one of the station wagons.
Really?
And we were playing joints. We were not playing the Civic Arena or a stadium or anything,
Yeah, yeah.
We were playing joints. But after a few months of that, the song, I think it was Private Eyes, might have been the first one that really took off, but there might have been one before that. Anyway, the song started taking off on the radio, and we went from the station wagons and the little places to, little jets and limos, and it stayed that way then because the songs just got bigger and bigger. They were huge, like in Japan and Europe.
Right.
We would go to Japan for 9 weeks and stay there and stay in Tokyo and fly out to all the other cities and come back. And I had a wonderful time with them. That was like the first kind of big thing that I was involved with. Again, pure luck. I happened to know this drummer, and he brought me over, or else it never would have happened.
Does Daryl still do that little show he does in the studio?
I don't know. Somebody just asked me that the other night, and I don't know the truth. He does still live up there, I know, and he still has his club, Daryl's House, in Pauling, New York.
Okay.
And actually, my little Masters of the Telecaster band, we just got an offer to go up there in the fall. So hopefully we'll get up there.
Yeah, it was a good show. I remember him doing, he did something with Todd Rundgren, I think, in Hawaii, because Todd lives in Hawaii.
Yeah.
That was decent. I had Todd on the show a bunch of times too. He's a really good guy. He still has this Philly accent.
Todd's great, man. You hear those records, those songs that he wrote. Just incredible. I was hanging around Philly in the late 60s, and I saw Todd was in a band called Woody's Truck Stop.
Right.
Before Naz.
Yep.
And they used to play in Fairmount Park. Play in the park on a Sunday afternoon. I saw them play a couple times. And at that point, he was just a hotshot guitar player. I don't even think he was singing, if I remember. Then he did Naz. He did those records, and those records were great.
Yeah.
Great. Naz and Naz with the red vinyl. Very cool stuff. Utopia. Yeah.
Guys, but he belongs in the Hall of Fame for sure.
Yes. Todd's not in the Hall of Fame. How can that be?
I don't think so.
How can that be? Yes.
Even as a producer,
As a producer. Nobody knows that he worked on the band, the Brown album. Like not Big Pink, but the Brown album, the one with Cripple Creek on it.
Yeah.
King Harvest has Surely Come, all those great songs. Todd, the way I hear the story, he just went up to Woodstock and said, "I'll engineer for free. I just want to be part of this." And he did it.
Huh. I asked him, how does he do the engineering portion of it? Because it looks difficult. He says, just fooling around. I just got on the board one day and played around with it.
He's a really smart guy.
He's
You
a
know,
smart guy. He really is.
I love Tom.
Here's another little connection between me and you. You did something with the Cleveland Browns, right?
Yeah.
Well, my son works for Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the
Okay.
Browns. Yeah,
Yeah.
he operates a lot of stores for Jimmy. You know, the
Right.
pilot locations. What did you
Right.
do? What did you do for the Browns?
Well, I was friends with the Lerner family who owned
Okay,
the Browns previous to
okay,
Mr. Hadley.
right.
So I was friends with them, and that's how I got to be. We would play like before the game. We'd play at halftime a little bit. We would do things. I remember one time we did the national anthem before the game,
Hmm.
and it was like I don't think they called it Old Timers Day or something, but a lot of the older players were there, and Jim Brown was there,
Oh
right?
wow.
So I got the league football and got Jim to autograph it, and I still have it. I just saw it the other day in downstairs.
Yeah.
I still have that. And then when he passed away recently, I was sad because he was a really cool guy. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember we're playing the anthem, and I was playing it kind of like the Birds. I had
Mm-hmm.
a electric, a Rickenbacker 12 string, and
Yep.
I'm playing it kind of like the Birds, very respectful,
Right.
but playing it in that 12 string way. And Jim walks over. He's on this flatbed, and he walks over and he goes, "It's too loud." Sir, Mr. Brown, we'll turn it down.
Oh man.
Yeah, man.
That's a great one right there. You
Great
know,
one.
I was a big Baltimore Colts fan. You know, I was born in
Mhm.
Baltimore, and of course, I love Johnny Unitas. And
Johnny Unitas.
there was critics that were saying, "Oh, he wasn't that good, this and that." And Jim Brown stood up and just blasted the hell out of those guys, and he says he was the best. You know,
Yep.
because that was a different era. That's when
Different
football
era,
was
man.
football.
I
You know,
remember maybe it's even before that. I don't even remember what team they were on, but Y.A. Tittle to Schaffner.
Giants. Yeah, Giants.
Tittle to Schaffner. That was the
Yeah,
pass,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. My dad was way into it, so I saw a lot of games.
Oh yeah. All right, I'm gonna blow you away now. Okay. G.E.SMITH with Leroy Bell, Stony Hill. Okay. Let me tell you about this album. Simply put, this is a great album. It's orchestrated and performed by a prolific musical alliance. I give it 5 stars.
Thank you.
What
That's
an album, man. What a sophisticated
Thank you.
classic
The
album.
the thing about that album, it was scheduled to be released on March 12th, 2020.
Okay.
Of course, on March 20th, 2020, the whole country shut down.
Yeah, that's
That was
right.
it. And that was it for that record. We couldn't go out and perform. We couldn't do anything. And you know how it is in the music business when something's new, it's fresh,
Mm-hmm.
it's hot.
Right.
2 years go by and it ain't new and fresh and hot anymore, and they're on to the next thing. So, but I really appreciate you saying that. I thought there was some good stuff on there.
You know, I've interviewed. I love R&B.
Yeah,
I love soul, funk,
me
all that.
too. Me too.
Blue-eyed soul. You know, like
Yep.
Hall and Oates. But Leroy Bell, he's the real deal. You
He's
know,
a
and
big
but in a modern era. You know what I mean? The
Yep.
guy's great. As a matter of fact, I put in a request to interview Leroy, so I hope he gets back to me because
Good.
I would love to talk to that
Yeah.
guy. But he kind of had like a Bill Withers type groove there a little bit.
Bill Withers, but like a little more like maybe there's some Sly Stone in his
Yep.
writing, some Al Green. He's yeah, Leroy is great. And we got to be really good friends. We worked on that record for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor, my wife, was listening one day to some, I think like a playlist or something. And I walk by, I go, "Who is that singing? Who is that guy?" And she goes, "Oh, that's this guy, Leroy Bell from Seattle." I'm like, "Call him up." And we did. And we got him. He came to our house here on the East Coast. And we sat down and wrote some songs right away and just got on really well. So that's what led to making that record.
That's a great find. I don't
Thanks.
think you could have found a better singer for that album.
Really not. And he's great because he not only gets all the obvious things you would think a black man would get. He gets R&B, he gets soul, but
Yeah,
he's a rocker too.
right.
Oh, he knows his Rush.
Yep.
You know, when I heard that, we started messing with Rush tunes. I said, yeah, okay, this is gonna work.
Some of the tracks on the album, I mean, I loved every track. You know, you started out with Black is the Color, which was
Right.
Joan Baez, right? That was a Joan
Well,
Baez
don't
track.
buy it. It goes way back. Black is the
Really?
color. Goes back, who knows, into the 19th century probably.
Wow.
It's a story about a white guy who's in love with a black girl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's talking about. Black is the color of my true love's hair, you know. But of course, you couldn't really say it in those days,
Right.
so he did it like that. Yeah, great song, and Leroy did an amazing job on it.
You and Me sounded a little bit like Hall and Oates. Sounded like a Hall and Oates
Yes,
groove.
yeah, definitely. Well, you know
Yeah.
that like you say, Blue Eyed Soul.
Yep.
It's funny, you know. After I played with Daryl and John, and a little time went by, I'd be like in the CVS, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
hear some song coming out of the ceiling, and I would hear that it was a young black R&B singer, and he was singing like Daryl, because Daryl, of course, was influenced by all the black
Oh
singers, by
yeah.
the Temptations, by Marvin Gaye, and all
Right.
that.
Right.
But then when these guys that I'm hearing now out of the ceiling were young, they were hearing Daryl. Their parents were playing Hall and Oates records, as well as Marvin and you know, James Brown and Al Green, the Temptations, the Four Tops, all that great stuff. So it's funny how the influences, as the generations go by, you know, the influence go back and forth. But yeah, Daryl is one of the great singers for
Yes,
sure.
he is.
Still is, still
Yep.
sings amazingly great.
Yeah. There's two tracks on that album that create kind of a powerful statement and fantastic vocals, great lyrics. One of them's America,
Yeah.
and the other one's Under These Skies. Very powerful songs.
Well, you've really listened to it. Thank you.
Oh yeah, of course.
Great. Yeah. I think if the COVID hadn't happened,
Mm-hmm.
that record would have got some play on the radio,
I
and
think so.
I don't know
Yeah.
if it would have been a great big hit, but I think that people would have heard the songs a little. America was perfect for the time,
Fantastic.
you know?
Fantastic.
And his singing is just so good, it grabs you.
Yeah. And also, you know, Let the Sunshine In. I
Yeah.
was I was a top 40 DJ back in the late 70s. So
Hmm.
I can pick a hit. That
Right.
Let the Sunshine In is the hit. That
It,
if we had top 40 radio, that would be on there.
yeah, man. Oh, thank you. That's what I'm gonna tell Leroy you said all this.
Oh my gosh. I could listen to this album over and over again. It's it's
Thanks.
it's me. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
kind of music I love.
Yeah,
It's a
me too.
great album.
I
Yeah.
love the combination in American popular music of all the different things. If
Mm-hmm.
you go all the way back into
Right.
like the 1820s and 30s, the pre-Civil War thing, of course, the black musicians and the white musicians weren't supposed to mix. The
Right.
black musicians are slaves.
Right.
Most of the white country players were farmers. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
rich guys, you
Mm-hmm.
know. They were not supposed to hang out together. But you know how musicians are. The white guys would hear the black guys playing and go, hey, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool. And the black guys
Exactly.
would hear the white guys and go, wait a minute, I like that. That's so they'd sneak off.
Yep.
They'd sneak out in the woods, sit around the fire, and they would play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where American popular music comes from.
Yep.
That interaction
It
back
is.
in the early 19th century.
Yeah. 100%, man. You know, what was so cool was, you know, the blues, you know, kind of lost its way for a while. And then the Brits brought it back, you
Yeah.
know, like John Mayall, the Blues Breakers, you know,
Yep.
all those guys, Savoy Brown, you know, which was
Yep.
cool. So we got to give it to the Brits for doing their part as well, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long and complex conversation. I've talked to like Eric Clapton about that
Mm-hmm.
and different people, you know, because I mean they completely realized that they got the blues from
Mm-hmm.
black musicians, you
Yeah,
know.
definitely.
And of course they made it this huge cultural thing
Yep.
in Europe and Western Europe, United States, Canada. it became a giant moneymaker. And it took a while before the original black musicians started getting some money. I used to do obscure blues songs on Saturday Night Live. And NBC was great, I gotta say, about finding the people. If I could give them the name, they would find the people and get them some money,
Yeah.
So there was this one song by the only credit on it was a 45. The only credit was Left Hand Frank. So nobody knew who Left Hand Frank was. And this is it wasn't pre-internet, but it's real early internet days.
Yeah.
So we couldn't find Left Hand Frank for a long, long time. And then finally they found him. He was living in Houston. And they sent him some money. Okay, so a few months later, they probably sent him, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 tops. I get a postcard, the old post office postcard, plain white postcard from Left Hand Frank. And he's like, thank you so much. That song has been played by people for years. I never got a nickel for it. Man, you got this money. I bought my wife a new washing machine. We're fixing up the porch. It's like, that's how it should be. Because that's where that came from.
It's a shame. I remember saying like guys like Muddy Waters only got a Cadillac for their music, things like that.
Got a Cadillac. Yeah.
That's all they'd give them. Out of all the tracks on that album, here's one that got a little out of the realm, from the traditional songs you were intended to be put on this album. Art's Sick. Kind of sound right. It sounded a little bit like Dire Straits.
Like Dire Straits, like it's definitely a Lou Reed type thing. That was my song.
I love it though. It sounded like you.
It's funny. Yeah, it sounds like it. It's just it's a funny old song.
Must have been a fun song to play though.
It was. Yeah. It was a fun song. I wish we would have got to play it more. If that COVID thing hadn't happened, we'd have got out on the road. We had a good band. We were ready, man.
Screwed everybody up, man.
Yep.
You got Codeine. You guys did a great job on Codeine.
Thank you.
Buffy St. Marie track.
Buffy St. Marie.
That was an incredible cover.
When I was about 13 years old, there was a show on TV called Hootenanny.
Yeah.
And they used to film it at colleges.
Right.
And I saw a Hootenanny and I saw Buffy St. Marie play that song. And I just thought, well, that's about the coolest thing I ever saw. She was beautiful. I was in love with her, my little 13-year-old self. And so I always, worked on that song and I was happy that we got to record it with somebody like Leroy who could really sing and get it on there.
And you close with When I Close My Eyes, which was a very soulful track.
Isn't that a killer?
Beautiful song. Yeah. Well, the album's incredible. I just want to mention Simon Kirke played drums on some of the tracks, right?
Simon's on a couple songs, absolutely. Simon is a good friend. I always loved his drumming, both in Free and in Bad Company, of course.
Right.
And then at some point, he moved out here on Long Island near where I live. So I started seeing him and hanging out, and we started playing a little bit. So we just went the other night. It was his birthday, and Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers was there, drummers there to wish him a happy birthday. So it was fun. I love Simon.
You said a special thanks to David Spiro. David's been on my show also.
Okay.
He's got his new book out, of course, which is really good. Yeah. Did you tour this album at all, or
no, man? Because of COVID, we were all set. Gigs were booked.
Shame.
The truck was almost loaded. It was like the record came out March 12th, March 20th. Everything closed down.
This album deserves a lot of promo.
Thank you.
I'm going to promote the hell out of it. So I'll do my best. But it's a great album, man. It's one of my favorite albums of the year now. It really is.
Cool. Very cool.
I want to give some a shout out to your wife, Taylor Barton.
Right.
Was her last album House of Light? Was that the last release she
I
had,
think it
or
was. I think that was the last full album, and we just recorded 5 new songs.
right?
And she's got a new song called "Get Off My Ship" that I
Okay,
think is probably the best thing that she's done, and it's kind of got some pop hook to it, which is
good.
interesting. We've
Yeah.
played it a couple times. We just played it the other night at the Stephen Talk House, this great old joint here in Amagansett, New York, out on Long Island. And people went, yeah,
Hmm.
they're singing along by the end of the song. So,
What's next for you? Are you got another album that you're gonna work on, or what?
and I don't know, I was never very ambitious. My thing was always I wanted to be a sideman from when I was
Right,
a kid. I would see James Burton playing
right.
with Ricky Nelson or Elvis Presley,
Yeah.
and I went, that's who I want to be. I want to be James Burton. I want to be able to do that. On Shindig, he was in the house band, the Shin Dogs, right, on that TV show, and he even got to play like behind Howlin' Wolf when the
Wow.
Rolling Stones forced Shindig to put Howlin' Wolf on. They said, well, if we're going to be on, you got to put Wolf on. So yeah, James Burton was definitely my guy. And I eventually got to meet him and play with him a little bit. And what a wonderful man.
Hmm. You know, what's so cool is so many people. You could create an all-star album with all your buddies.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
That would be great. You
Let's do
know,
it. Let's do
they
that.
do a lot of the prog stuff like that.
Right.
Like Billy Sherwood brings in a lot of people for
True.
prog, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or they dedicate an album like Carmine, and Carmine and Peace. They just did
Yeah.
Vanilla Fudge did one for Zeppelin recently, which is great. And people, idiots, criticize it because it didn't sound exactly like the Zeppelin songs.
They want to do the record, not the
That's
song. Yeah, it's
it
crazy.
was they were so inventive of the way they
Yeah.
played the Zeppelin songs. It was incredible. I loved it.
You know who else I run into a lot is Corky Lang, the drummer from Mountain.
I just had lunch with Corky.
There you go. There you go.
What were we going to say about Corky?
He's the greatest. Have you
Yeah,
ever seen him do? He does Like a Rolling Stone, the Bob Dylan song,
I haven't seen him do that.
with
No,
just him playing drums. No other
really.
instruments. Him playing drums and kind of reciting the lyrics like a poetry beat Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac kind of
I
thing.
haven't seen that. No.
It's really cool.
Huh. I know him in Tuisha, his
Yep.
girlfriend, man,
Yep.
the manager. We had lunch at the Cracker Barrel here in Sarasota.
Oh, can't Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
traded books because I'm an author too, and he's
nice.
got a book out, so we
Nice.
Corky's great. I love Corky.
What kind of stuff do you write? You write fiction or
Well, my first book is about growing up in the family business. It's called Check the G's.
uh-huh.
Actually, I'm trying to make it a sitcom on TV, so I've been talking to some people, which is very difficult.
It
And
is.
then the Rockstar Chronicles, that's me interviewing about 45 music legends. And
Nice.
first chapter is about like 10 guys that have passed away,
Right.
Greg Lake, Keith Emerson, Johnny Winter, Tony Joe White, guys like that.
Oh, Tony Joe, yeah.
Uh,
Great.
I'll send I'll send you the ebooks if you want.
When they were putting together Asia, this might
Mhm.
have been like the end of 79 or 1980. I actually went with my manager at the time to the Plaza Hotel in New York
Right.
and talked to Carl Palmer about maybe asking me to join Asia. Now, I think the minute I walked in the room, we both knew it was not the right thing and it was
Right.
never going to happen, because I had the crew cut, I had the Marine. I used to go in the barbershop and say, cut it like I'm a Marine.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Just, gone. And, this is when everybody else looked like the guys in Boston,
Yeah.
long hair. How about that record? How about those Boston records, man?
I
Amazing
know. I
records.
know.
Production, Tom Scholz.
It's amazing what he's done,
Yep.
you know?
Smart guy. Smart.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I had a minor shot at being in Asia.
Huh.
Never worked. It would never would have worked, and it was obvious from the front. But it was
Do you ever regret not being in a band full time? You know?
sometimes, I mean, some like Peter Gabriel asked me around 1980 if
Oh, that
I
would have
would
been great.
join his band. Yeah, that would have been interesting. But then I would have had to move to England.
Right.
You know, I would have never been on Saturday Night Live. I would have never played with Bob Dylan. So things would have been very different.
Well, Tony's local, isn't he? He's in
Tony's
U.S.
Tony's a US guy. He's an East
Yeah.
Coast. Yeah. But he was able to, you know, parlay his time so that he could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And whoa, what a musician he is. Tony Levin.
Tony Levin,
Great.
Stickman.
Still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. I want to talk a little bit about SNL.
Okay.
You know what blew me away? I saw Sam Kinison playing guitar on
Right.
SNL with you. I had no idea he was such a great player.
That's right. Yeah, he actually really knew how to play. And obviously hysterically funny. You know, the working with the comedians, most of them obviously have great big personalities, you
Right.
know, and they don't necessarily turn it off that
Mm-hmm.
often. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they're on and they want to be funny, and so that was a great 10 years for me, you know, to be there with all those people and then get to play with all kinds of people that came through. Like I got to play with Al Green twice.
I love Al Green,
That
man.
was a high for me because I had studied his records. There was a man named Teeny Hodges who played
Uh-huh.
guitar on a lot of Al's records, and I learned all that Teeny Hodges stuff, you know. And so that was amazing to get to play with Al. Uh, got to play with so many people. Got to play with Aerosmith when they did the first Wayne's World. And I had written the theme song to Wayne's World with Mike Myers. He came to me, he had those lyrics, Wayne's World,
Mm-hmm.
party
Mm-hmm.
time, excellent. He said, I just need like the dumbest chords you could play. I said, well, I got that covered, man. Let's do it. Dumb shit, I know. So we did that, and I got to actually play with Aerosmith. That was a lot of fun. Lots of different people, you know, Ricky Lee Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't think I did a good job on that one, but it was great. Probably would never notice it on TV. I could tell you so many stories about stuff that went on there because of the show really being live. When I was
Right.
there was no 7 second delay or nothing. When
Mm-hmm.
you were watching it, it was happening
Mm-hmm.
at the time. Like Brian Ferry, this is a great story. Brian Ferry was on one
Mm-hmm.
time, and he had brought Johnny Marr, the British guitar player.
Right.
And I don't think he brought anybody else, just Johnny. So then we filled it in with the guys from the house band at Saturday Night Live, who were all great musicians. You know, I'm this bar band guy, and these guys are like the best jazz guys in the United States. You know, they're like serious players. So I'm struggling to keep up. But they were really nice to me when I first got there and would sit me down at the piano. Steve Ture, the trombone player, Leon Pendarvis, the organ player, and Cheryl Hardwick, the piano player, in particular, those three would sit me down and say, hey, this is why this chord does this and why it goes to this. And so they taught me a lot. But anyway, Brian Ferry's on 2 songs. So the way Saturday Night Live worked was you do it about 7:30, you do a run-through show.
Mm-hmm.
In time, live. You want to do it real time as much as possible.
Right.
And then at 11:30 on the dot, you go on the air and you do the show. The reason we used to get those little, what they call bumpers with the band where you'd see us for 12 or 15
Mm-hmm.
seconds was because it was live. Sometimes some of the comedy pieces might be 10 seconds short, 20 seconds short. Gee, you're going to fill in for 20. And I'd tell the guys, okay, let's do this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
boom. So we'd hit some little thing. That was that. Anyway, so Brian Ferry comes out, does his first song. Then there's a break. There's some more comedy. Now it's later in the show. He's going to do his second song. And it started with a conga drum intro. And I had hired a good percussion guy from New York City,
Right.
play congas, and we rehearsed it, and he'd been playing it. It was great. Now, Chris Parker at the time was the drummer on the band, So he was there, and it's down to like 20 seconds. Joe Dixon, the stage manager, is going 20 seconds. And at 20 seconds, we're going to be on camera live, 25 million people out there, you know. And the conga guy's not there. And he starts the song. So I look around and I see Steve Jordan, the great drummer, who's now like the Stones, right?
Right.
And I go, Jordan, come here. And he looks at me like, what? I guess you can come. I said, Chris, the real drummer, I said, you play the conga part because you know it.
Sure.
You know, and then at least we get the song going. And Steve, you just kick in. So Brian Ferry's looking around like, oh, Jesus, what's going to happen here? You know, well, of course, it was great. Chris started the song. Steve's a fantastic drummer. It sounded wonderful. But stuff like that would happen. And it could get pretty tense for a minute, you know?
You guys were incredible. You know, you guys were as good of a band in SNL as Doc Severinsen was with the Johnny Carson show.
Different thing, but yeah, we were a good band. Again, because the quality of the musicians in the band, other than me, these are like heavy cats. Other than like a corporation like NBC, nobody could have afforded that band. Nobody could have paid for that band.
True.
So I was lucky to be there with them.
I love SNL. I mean, that was our thing in high school. You know, I'm talking about when it first started out with Belushi and Gilda. Right. You know, every weekend we sit around and yes, we smoked pot and got blown away and watch SNL.
It was great.
that was our 5
years.
Yeah.
First 5 years, it was amazing. Do you know that Chevy Chase was only on for 1 year?
Yeah, I do know that.
1 year.
Yeah.
76. Then he went to Hollywood.
Right.
Kind of established the template for what people wanted to do. They wanted to get on Saturday Night Live for a year or two and then go out to Hollywood where they could really make some money. I mean, the actors were getting paid well to do Saturday Night Live, but nothing like what they could make on a Hollywood movie.
But the original lineup, man, you know, Garrett Morris and Ray Newman, you know,
Ray, Gilda, Jane Curtin, eventually Billy Murray,
right?
It was really cool.
Was let's see, who was there when you were there? Was
when I was there, Chris Rock, Farley, Mike Myers,
right?
Adam Sandler,
Eddie Murphy, was he there?
Eddie was just before me.
Okay,
just before me. Eddie was there like the 80 to 85 period, and I came on in 85. Phil Hartman, Kevin Nealon, and different people passed through. Like Sarah Silverman was on for a little while, and she was great, man. She's so smart. She's wonderful to talk to, you know, because she's really smart, really funny. Bunch of Jan Hooks was on. It was really interesting, and you'd put in a lot of time at the office. Certain nights, you know, you'd be there for a long time.
What was Gilda funny at home?
Gilda, yeah, I mean, she was funny, but she, you know, when I knew her and lived with her, we actually got married for a couple of years.
Yeah.
No, you know, she was a normal person at home. Right. And what I would like people to always know about Gilda was she was a very intelligent person, you know, educated, but then she could be so silly and funny and make fun of herself. And so, yeah, we had a good time. We probably should have never got married, you know, because we were just good friends and we should have kept it at that. But we had a good time.
Yeah. She was awesome. I really like Gilda. Are you still doing portraits? Is that still happening?
Yes. Okay. Now, I think we did one this summer. We would usually do like 4 or 6 of those during a summer. Next year, just today, we were talking to a couple of people that we hope to have on next summer. Because, you know, you got to book these things way out ahead because people get Their schedules get booked up. And what portraits is, people probably don't know, is I'll have on some well-known person.
Mm-hmm.
We originally started it as people that weren't necessarily musicians, people that were known, like we had Ethan Hawke on, who's known as an actor, but he's a good guitar player, and he's a Texas guy, and he does this kind of cool Texas thing, and he had a great band with him. We had Ethan Hawke on. Then while I was working with Roger Waters, I actually got Roger to do it. And this is like 300-seat theater.
Wow.
And people were killing to get tickets to see Roger. Is the only solo show he's ever done. It was just me and him.
That's unusual. That's very unusual.
Way unusual. I mean, people came from Germany and Uruguay and places like that. That was, and then through some other friends, I got to know Scott and Seth Avett.
Right.
And so we had the
Avett brothers. Yeah.
In this little theater. And they were in the middle of a tour doing stadiums and festivals and stuff. But they had a day, and Taylor planned all this out. She's great at planning this stuff. And the Avett brothers came in. That was a fantastic show. There was about like 2,000 people outside and 300 people in the theater. Yeah. We had the Dawes, Taylor Goldsmith.
Yeah.
Dawes, another band that I love. I love good bands, bands with good singing and good playing songs. That's
that's what's missing on commercial radio. There's no bands.
There's not many. That's for sure. There's not many. Well, it's so easy now to record at home with your laptop, and
it's so easy today too.
Yeah.
You know what blew me away? Who you had on portraits? It's very rare. Was Billy Squier, because he hasn't done a heck of a lot.
That's
lately.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, me and Billy, we knew each other from way back, from before we'd done from New York City, and we're both like vintage guitar guys. So we'd see each other in WeBuy on 48th Street, looking at guitars. And then Billy lives out here, not far away. And we started hanging out a little, and we played a few times at the house, just playing blues pretty much, and we said, hey, this is fun. So we went out and did a bunch of shows, just the two of us, doing Billy's music mostly, And he was definitely the feature, and I was the side man. So we did that. And then, Taylor got him to do portraits, and that was really good. And when we do portraits, I always envisioned it as if a couple of guys are sitting around the living room. They got their guitars. They play songs, but they also talk. About whatever comes up, not just music. It can be anything, So, we got to do some portrait shows. Fun, and we're planning some good ones next summer. I can't say who it is yet because they're not completely booked, but we're planning them.
Well, if you need any help, I know a lot of people too.
Cool. I bet you do. I
know a lot, and a lot of connections, man.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get Hart back together.
Okay? Yes.
But there's always one stubborn person, But I know Roger, I know Michael, I know, I know most of the guys, and I interviewed Ann not long ago. So I'm still working on it.
I played on a show. I don't know if it was not last summer. It was the summer before at Jones Beach.
Right.
And Hart was on the show, and I was really anxious to see them. But it was a night that a hurricane came.
Okay.
And about halfway through the show, the place had started to flood, and it's an outdoor venue. The first 20 rows had to move back because it was flooded at their seats. There was like 3 feet of water at the seats. Wow. And some electronic thing got wet and caught on fire. But fortunately, there was like 100 policemen and firemen there. So the firemen loved it. Hey, a fire! They ran over and put out the fire. So that was a little crazy. But I would love to get Geddy Lee to do one, man, from Rush. I'm a big Rush fan,
You know, Geddy Lee could have replaced Chris Squire in Yes. Did you see him
Did
in the
you
Hall of
see
Fame?
that? It's so good.
He was good, right?
Not only can he play his parts, he can
Yeah.
sing his parts. And
Yeah.
Chris,
He'd be perfect
my,
in Yes.
yeah. I
Yeah.
saw him play a bunch back in the 70s, like in Hartford
Hmm.
and New Haven. Really good band live. Really good.
I saw Rush in a very small place, like 500 seats. It was Kiss, Rush, and the Heavy Metal Kids. I think it was like 1974 or
Wow.
something. Of course, tickets were like $5.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just put out Fly By Night. I think that was the album they had out at the time. Yeah, those were the good old days, right?
Yeah,
When
man.
tickets were cheap.
I have a ticket stub from I think it's March of '68 from the Fillmore East. It's Albert King, Jethro Tull, and the Jeff Beck Group. Now,
Holy cow!
this is the Jeff Beck Group with Rod Stewart on
Yeah,
vocals, Ron
yeah,
Wood on bass, Nicky Hopkins on drum, and
unbelievable.
Nicky Hopkins on piano, and Mickey Waller on drums.
Hmm.
$5. I was in the third row.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep, great
Did
stuff.
Did you know Jeff Beck?
I did. I did. I got to play with Jeff uh, on Mick Jagger's first two solo albums back in the mid '80s. Uh, and he was, I was a huge Jeff Beck fan,
Oh, me
giantly
too. Me too.
influenced by not just his playing, but
Uh-huh.
the whole look. Like when the Yardbirds first came out,
Yeah.
like '65, and we started seeing those black and white videos of them playing live
Mm.
in England at the Marquee Club and stuff. I'm like, yes, that's what I want to be right there. So to get to play with them and hang out, and, we would have lunch and play cricket, and it was it was a real great experience for me.
How about any of the Beatles?
I at a different point met all the Beatles. I got to play with Paul and Ringo and a tiny, tiny little bit with John. Tiny, tiny.
Really?
Just me and
Wow.
John with acoustic guitars.
Huh.
Me and Gilda lived in that building, the
Hmm.
Dakota,
Oh,
where
did
he,
you really? I
yes,
didn't know
where he
that.
was murdered. And
Huh.
in a couple of months leading up to that, he had been recording. So I'd see him coming in and out carrying a guitar. And he had a Fender case one day, a particular like 1962 type of case.
Hmm.
And I'm coming out with exactly the same thing.
You're
And he
kidding me.
looks at me and
Huh.
he goes, 62 Strat. I go, yeah. And he just laughs. So then a couple times we had a little stoop on our apartment. It was the only stoop that led down into the courtyard. A couple times he came and sat down and talked to me a little bit. Nothing world changing, but I'm sitting there
Yeah.
with Lennon, and
Very cool.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
I interviewed Julian. Really
Yeah,
nice guy. It's like
nice.
talking to John. He sounded just like John.
That sounds just like
Yeah. Nice
yeah.
guy. What'd you do
Great.
with Paul? What did you do with Paul?
Oh, this is hysterical. So there's this place in Amagansett out here
Right.
called the Stephen Talk House. Now, the
Okay.
Stephen Talk House has been there I've been playing there for over 30 years. And they have national acts too.
Hmm. Right.
Like I said, like last night they had Marcus King, and I sat in with Marcus. But one summer, maybe '92 or something, while I was off from Saturday Night Live, I played there every Tuesday night. It's like a residency all summer long.
Right.
Tuesday night. So it's an area out here where a lot of people come for their vacations, and a lot of well-known people have homes out here. And you'll see like Billy Joel or Jimmy Buffett or
Hmm.
Sting walking down the street. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Like that. So one Tuesday night we're playing, and Paul McCartney's in the office. I mean, in the audience.
Hmm.
So this is great. So we play. We take a break, and we go upstairs, and Paul comes upstairs to say hi. And we're getting ready to do the next set. And he goes, in the Paul voice, do you think I could sit in? And I'm like, let me ask the guys if it's what can the Beatles sit in? I think so. So he came down and sang like Blue Suede Shoes, and they love all that bebop stuff,
Sure.
Carl Perkins and Roy
Yeah.
Orbison, all that. And we did 3 or 4 songs, and he was just great. And then George Harrison, I got to play with Bob Dylan because of
Wow.
course George and Bob were great friends.
Mm.
George would come to shows, and he would sit in from time to time, and he did that Madison Square Garden 30th anniversary show.
Hmm.
So I got to play with him there. We
Cool.
did. Remember, he had a big hit with "If Not for You," the
Right.
Bob song. If not
Hmm.
for you, da, 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 da.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's a like iconic George Harrison slide guitar part in that. Right? It's not super
Hmm.
complex, but it's that sound that he would get on
Sure.
slide guitar that nobody else ever got. So we go to start rehearsing the song the day before the show, and he's playing acoustic guitar. And I'm going, oh, George, man, you got to play that slide thing. He goes, oh, no, I just want to play acoustic. You play it. I'm like, okay, I'll play it. So we get to the show. He does his first song, which I think was absolutely Sweet Marie, if I remember right. And now we're going to do If Not For You. And I don't get nervous on stage. I've been doing this for a long time.
Sure.
I really don't get nervous, but I'm nervous. And he looks over at me and he can see that I'm like freaking out because I got to play this part. And if I mess that up, come on, it's pitiful if I did. So we start the song. We're doing the song. It sounds great. We got great drummers, bass player. Everybody's great. And it gets down to the part where it's going to be me playing that slide guitar thing. And he walks over to me. You can see this on the video. And he talks in my ear. Well, Bob had bought me this amazing electric blue shark skin suit, right? From a vintage guitar place in New Orleans, vintage clothing place in New Orleans. And I'm wearing the suit. And George walks over and he leans in and, like in the Beatle cartoon voice, he puts it on. You know what I mean? Even more. He goes, a nice suit. I just went, yeah, okay. And I did the part and I did it okay. But he just took all the tension out of it.
That's
Super nice
hilarious.
guy. Super
Oh,
nice.
yeah. Yeah, I talked to Gary Wright about George. They were good friends.
Because he
Yeah.
did those, yeah.
Yeah. He was on a few of his albums as well. George Harrison.
George, really, really nice guy.
Yeah. I got to ask you real quick about Roger Waters. I guess you
Yep.
were the David Gilmour of the band, right? When you played with him?
No, I was
No,
not the Gilmore.
no.
Dave Kilminster, a great
Oh, yeah. He's
British
great.
guitar player.
Yeah.
Dave did the Gilmore, the solo stuff.
Okay.
And Dave had it down, man. He
Hmm.
played it
Hmm.
because we were doing the wall
Right.
for 6 years. We did it 2010 to 2016. And it wasn't a band, it was a theatrical performance.
Right.
We had to be in the right place in our uniforms, and there was a costume change in the middle of the show. You had to hit your mark, you had to play the thing right. So we were playing it as much like the record as we could. And I always say, play the song, don't play the record. But in this instance, with the wall, we were playing the record. So Dave could do that stuff great. Roger was acting in a lot of the show. So I wound up playing bass on about 80% of the show.
Really?
And then Snowy White was the other guitar player.
Huh.
Great British guitar player. He was in Thin Lizzy for a while. Great blues player. He was really good friends with Peter Green,
Right.
Mayall's band. And a wonderful guy. I got to be really good friends with Snowy. I love Snowy.
Mm.
So yeah, that and then on some songs we all played guitar. Me, Snowy, and Dave. Young Lust and some other ones. But yeah, I played a lot of bass on the wall.
So you were Roger Waters.
In a way,
You did Money.
musically.
Yeah. I give those roadies a lot of credit, man. They don't get enough credit, do they, for setting up
amazing.
The stage hands, all those guys,
And
man.
that was a very elaborate stage,
Yep.
both in for the band gear and for the staging itself.
Yep.
As it went on, as that tour went on, it got bigger and bigger. The wall, when we started in 2010, was, I think, 620 bricks.
Mm-hmm.
The last show that we did in Quebec City, it was 950 bricks.
Wow.
It was almost twice as big.
Yeah.
And they had figured out a way, a new digital technology of projecting a different image on each one of those hundreds of bricks.
Really?
And
Huh.
they didn't bleed. Because I'd walk up to in the afternoon and the images were there and I'd stick my finger in it and go, no, it's not bleeding a bit.
That's
You
crazy.
know? Yeah, they had Roger does things at a level that I had only ever read about. I did big tours, Bob Dylan did, different people.
Yeah.
This was huge. We had like 170 some semi tractor trailer trucks, and there were several hundred people on the road full time. Crew guys, catering, truck drivers, riggers, electricians.
Unbelievable.
It was, yeah, it was.
It's really hard to fathom, how they can do that quickly and go from city to city,
They
and
only
not and sleep.
Well, sleep, no, they didn't sleep much. That crew. They, I think we only ever did two back-to-backs, like a Tuesday night and a Wednesday night, because it took them, 10 or 12 hours to get to the next city, and it took them really 24 hours to put the show up.
Jeez.
But they were amazing. I mean, yeah, by the end we had like high steel crews, guys that could build bridges, because the thing just kept getting bigger.
Yeah. What do you think about Roger now doing Dark Side of the Moon?
He's great. Good for him. Why not?
Yeah. He may be calling you again for another tour.
He's no, I think he's got a Los Angeles guys now, as far as
does he?
Yeah. I think Kilminster's still in the band.
Right.
And John Karen, who played keyboards and different things, very talented, all really great guys,
Yeah. I know David Gilmour's ex-wife. She's a Facebook friend, and I interviewed her about her book. She did a really good book. She's really nice. And yeah, I know some of the guys that are who were involved with David Gilmour. His first album, I forgot, losing it now. Anyway, he lives in Sarasota. He was the bass player on David Gilmour's first solo album. And he played with Foreigner. I can't remember his name now. It's terrible.
Yeah, I know.
Bass player with Foreigner. Yeah.
Yep.
And he lives here now in Sarasota.
Yeah.
Nice guy. Really good guy.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. You ready for your final question? I ask everybody this question, and I get some very, very interesting answers. If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, to perform or collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
Well, I think I'd have to go back to the 1920s, and I would want to play with Louis Armstrong with like the hot fives and the hot sevens. And
good answer.
Play that.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
You like jazz?
I do like jazz, but I'm not like super educated in jazz. Right. So I like that older stuff, definitely, because it's blues, like Miles said, it's all blues. But some of the like bebop stuff and stuff I'm not capable of keeping up with. So, I couldn't play that. But some of that old timey stuff I would love to just to meet those players and I have a guitar that belonged to Johnny St. Cyr, who was a New Orleans guy, originally a banjo player. They were banjo players until the 20s when they finally made acoustic guitars that were loud enough,
right,
heard along with the horns, and most of the banjo players converted to guitar. So I've got one of his old guitars, which always makes me real happy.
That's awesome. You play? Yeah. Can you play banjo?
I'm a pitiful banjo
Yeah.
player. I can play like the old kind of style chord banjo, but
Yeah.
like bluegrass,
Yeah.
the Earl Scruggs thing, no.
Steve
No.
Martin's a really good banjo
Mine's a
player.
really good banjo player.
Yeah.
Really good. And my great friend David Lindley, who just passed away
Mm-hmm.
recently, Lindley was a fantastic banjo player. You didn't often see him play it.
Mm-hmm.
He was very talented guy
Hmm.
and the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Funny as could be, man.
Well, if I can get this heart thing together, if Howard Leese says no,
Yeah,
I'm going to be calling you.
cool. I'm
You can fill
around.
in for Howard and play guitar with Roger.
Amazing.
So brush up on your heart.
Yeah, I know some of those songs.
Oh yeah,
Barracuda.
yeah.
Yeah,
One of the songs I first learned how to play was "Crazy on You," which
right.
is not a hard song to play.
Who was the guy that was like the lead guitar player at the very beginning in Heart? Because
Well, it was Roger Fisher in the very
is that his
beginning.
name, Roger
Yeah,
Fisher?
yeah.
Man, some of that stuff he played, like in what's that
Excellent
song?
guitar player.
Is that Crazy on You? Just right through me.
Oh, that's
With a smile. Love me.
that's Magic Man.
Yeah,
Magic
Magic
Man.
Man. There's a guitar
That's
player,
him.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is amazing. I've never heard anybody else do something like it, you know?
He's got a certain sound to me that makes heart. And I always say this, and I told him this a million times. The girls got way too much credit because that band, I liked Heart because of the guys, because how
Yeah.
they played, but they got all the credit, you know?
Well, you know, it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
The band was definitely great, but,
Yep.
Ann and Nancy, great.
Well, great
Great,
songwriters. They're great
yeah, great
songwriters.
guys and some
Yeah.
serious singing going on.
Yeah. Well, I agree. No, they're awesome. But
Yep,
I'm still a big Roger fan.
definitely.
Gee, thank you so much, man, for
Thank
being
you,
on the
man. It
show
was a
today.
lot of fun.
Me too. Let's keep in touch. Please
Yep.
put out some more music because
I hope
that album was kick ass. It's one of my favorite albums this year. I really mean that, man. And
I really appreciate it that you actually listened to that record. Thanks a
oh,
lot.
I'd love it. I'm going to be listening to it over and over again. All this
Cool.
year.
Cool.
I mean, you picked a great singer there, and you guys
Yeah.
collaborate very well together. You really do.
Roy Bell.
Yeah, man, he's awesome. I want to
Yep.
say special thanks to Mrs. Taylor Barton Smith for
Yeah,
arranging
they
this
are.
interview. Thank you so much for putting this thing together. You can purchase G.E. Smith and Leroy Bell entitled Stony Hill at Amazon.com. And let's see, you have your official website. You have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You have an IMDb. You have the Taylor Barton Smith official website
That's right.
and the Leroy Bell official website. So you're
Yep.
out, you're everywhere, and
Roy
actually you got a
Patterson.
couple of dates coming up. You're going to be in New York, September 7th, right?
Is it September 7th or September 18th?
September 7th and September 15th is what I got.
Okay, cool.
The 15th is the Masters of the Telecaster,
That's right.
and that's in Connecticut, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, dude, I hope to see more of you, man, because
All right.
we really miss you, and you're a great artist. I really
Thanks
mean
so
that.
much.
All right, man. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye now.